And I am so privileged to serve our alma mater as the alumni director. But I am also very privileged to let you know that we have a very special guest here today, and I think she has a story she wants to tell. So Dr. Cooper, our 13th president and special guest taster, over to you.
Thank you, Tammy. Let me begin by saying hi to everybody. I've seen many of you over the weekend, either in your class gatherings or at the paint and sip last night. And many of you attended the State of the College this morning. And so I won't go into any details about this because now it's happy hour. But your alma mater is safe, sound, secure, and going forward strong. And a lot of that's because of you and your contributions. So let me begin by thanking you. I do want to tell one quick story about Dave because he may not know this story. So when you're 60, and welcome to the club, it's a very nice club that I also am a member of, and it's good. The next years ahead of us are the best, so don't you worry about that, Dave.
Thank you.
No,
Sure.
you won't need it. So
I know I won't need it, but I just was.
So 8 years ago, I came to be the college president here at Springfield College, and that's why I put 2013 on my identifier. And when I came, Doug Coop, who many of you know, was the chairman of the board, and he said, what I'd like you to do in your first 4 or 5 months is to go out and visit all the trustees and also notable alums. So I came back to my office and I'm like, notable alums, how will I know that they're notable? Who would tell me that? And so I either met with Tammy or Tammy called me and I said, I'm going to go to Boston for a meeting. Is there anybody in Boston I should meet with? And she said, without a hesitation, Dave Boyle. You've got to meet Dave Boyle. And so Dave was the very first alum, the very first notable alum that wasn't employed at Springfield College at the time that I had a chance to go meet with. So I called and said, I'm the new president. I wonder if I could buy you a drink, which was kind of a crazy thing for me to say to Dave Boyle, because you probably could. I probably will tell you what we're going to drink, but you probably could. So I drove to Boston, and this was my first time driving to Boston from Springfield. And my car was in the shop, and they said, well, why don't you take the Springfield College van? So I drove into Boston to meet Dave Boyle in the Springfield College van. And now all of the toll booths are gone, for those of you that are very familiar with Boston. At the time, in 2013, they were not. And so I, again, first encounter driving to Boston to meet a notable alum, and I drive through the toll booth. And if you remember, there to get to where I was meeting him, the turnoff was very quick. And you really had to make an immediate right. And so I was flustered and a little bit distracted and disoriented. And so I was coming around and I couldn't get over quick enough. And so the guy next to me cut me off and just drive forward. So I had to come around the toll booth again. Very embarrassing. Got off, came around, and the toll booth person recognized me, probably because of the Springfield College van. He goes, what happened? And I said, well, I was driving over and the person next to me cut me off. He's like, hit the gas, honey. And so I blew out of that toll booth, hit the gas on that Springfield College van. I don't know who I cut off. All they probably saw was a blur of words, Springfield College. But by the time I got to Dave, I was flustered. And it was, I think, the Red Sox were playing. It was the first night of the Bruins opening season. It was mayhem. And the very nicest 2 hours I spent with Dave Boyle, my notable alum. And so I'll always remember you as my first friendly face at Springfield College. And so cheers to you.
Thank you. That I do remember that, Dr. Cooper. And I originally said to Mike West, I said, what did I do wrong? She wants to meet with me. I was petrified.
So before we turn it over to Dave, I know my colleague, Kylie Martin-Laurentis, class of 13, just would like to greet you very quickly, and then we're going to turn it right over to Dave. So Kylie, take it away.
Thanks, Tam, and thanks for that great story, President Cooper.
My name is Kylie. I'm here. I am from the class of 2013, grad class of 16. I'm actually here with my husband, Anthony, who's also a member of the class of 2013. Just here to welcome you all as a member of the Division of Institutional Advancement. I work in the Office of Development within the division, and I serve as the Director of Annual Giving for Leadership Gifts in Athletics. So I just wanted to start by thanking everyone for being here and thanking you just for all your support throughout the year, for all you've done for us, for continuing to just be great advocates for Springfield College, for continuing to support both financially and just in general in all you do to spread the word about Springfield College. And really excited to have Dave here with us tonight. I went to Napa Valley about a month or two ago with Anthony for our honeymoon, and Dave was the first one to step up and say, "Hey, Kylie, I've got a bunch of places for you to check out." And he had a couple complimentary tastings for us when we were in Napa, and it was just amazing. So I know Dave is just such a great part of our community, such an amazing person. I was just texting him, giving him grief over his 60th birthday here, but just really excited for Dave to kick it off. Thanks everyone for all you're doing and for being here with us today, because it's gonna be a great time. Thanks everybody. And Dave, take it away, my friend.
So thanks, Kylie and Dr. Cooper, and Dave, it's all yours.
Wow, I have to tell you, since the pandemic has kicked in, I've been on your end of these for 15 months. I've never been the guy presenting. So, but first I have to point a few things out. Little Springfield College decorations, maroon plant in the corner, Springfield College shirt. I did not wear a two-striper. It would have been not pretty. So that's half the battle. So, first and foremost, who am I? I'm Dave Boyle, class of 1983. I am the younger brother of the more famous Mike Boyle, class of 81, grad 82. Everybody knows my big brother. I was always Mike's brother on campus. I even got introduced, I want to say, at the last golf tournament as Mike's brother. I didn't get a name attached to me, so I thought that was kind of funny. So you do get used to this growing up as a younger kid. I know my friends, the Cargills, are on, and I think, Paul, you went through the same thing, you know, being Kathy's younger brother, so we get used to it. I want to thank a couple of people, and I do cheat. I got a little notepad here. As you get older, you know this gets a little tougher. Dr. Cooper and staff, thank you for having me. This is just an honor. Every now and then I say this to me, why me? Like, how did I get so lucky that someone would ask me to do this? But I'm thrilled to death, and I'm having a blast. To Tammy and her staff, thank you. We kind of prepped this meeting. We've done this all, so we're set and ready to go. And we were joking, this is the first time I ever remember anyone on campus praying for rain on reunion weekend. So that's a heck of a lot of fun for us. Last but not least, I'd be remiss. The wine here today is donated. My friends from the Trinchero family estates. You know them as anything from Sutter Home to Nyers. Joel Gott is certainly one of their brands and great people. My friend Joel Gott, who absolutely thinks I'm hysterical that I'm doing this. And last but not least, I work for a company called the Martinetti Companies. I help people pay my dues. Started with them, we were number 5 in the state. We're now the 5th largest wholesaler in the United States of America. So I think that's kind of a pretty cool accomplishment. A kid who went to Springfield College to be I was a health phys ed and recreation major, and I ended up as vice president of one of these largest liquor companies in the country. So yeah, this to me is an honor. I'm having a blast. Who are we going to talk about? The main show, Joel Gott. He does Joel Gott Cab. We got Sauvignon Blanc here. He's got a whole list of wines. If you want to Google him, he's fun. I know I was talking to some people out in California. You go up Highway 29 through Napa Valley. He owns these little takeout shacks. I think it's called Gott's Roadside or something now. Coolest slogan in the world, Gott, which I think is a play on, of course, Gott Milk. But I just think Joel's just one of those guys. He's a heck of a lot of fun. To keep what I call the educational piece of this, I brought a non-alcoholic wine with me. My friends at Sutter Home make something called Frey. They make various flavors. You can pick up a bottle of this somewhere probably between $5 and $10. I always tell people it costs more money to take the alcohol out of the wine than to actually have it in the wine. So it's there, it's fun. It's 70 calories per serving, 5-ounce serving. You get the same kind of flavors and stuff, but you don't get the alcohol, I guess buzz is a lack of a better word. But believe it or not, the amount of cases we sell of just this label is astounding. I've got a case over here next to me, so if people want to see it, it's a heck of a lot of fun. That's what you're looking for. Here's what I call the fun part. These two wines are great. They were both at 92 points in the last issue. I was Wine Spectator or Wine Decanter. I actually have drawn a blank on that. That's not good for me. The fun part, you'll see this, it says Joel got 815 cab. I actually sat through a seminar with a guy talking about the 815 and saying that's when Joel picks the grapes, August 15th of every year. And I'm looking at the guy saying, well, this is kind of weird because Joel's a personal friend of mine. 815 is his daughter's birthday. He just thought it'd be kind of funny to do 815, like Rolling Rock puts the 33 on their bottle and it starts the conversation. That's what Joel did. So he's a bit of a character, great guy to get to know. His wines are incredible. He actually, just during this whole pandemic and stuff, he donated $1.5 million to food banks and other organizations like that throughout the country. He's a real give back kind of guy, farmer his whole life, 5th generation farmer. He started God in '96 with his wife, and this brand has just taken off. So again, I'm not much here to sell the brand, but I said, if I'm going to promote somebody's stuff, we're going to have some fun. So this is the fun part. I know some of you who signed up first got what I call the stemless glass. You can see that there's nothing under here to put it on. I teased Tammy, of course. I'm not a fan of these. Why? If you pour wine into the glass and you put your hands on it, the heat from your hands is going to take down the temperature in the glass. So with red wine, it isn't as bad. But if you're putting a white wine in this glass, the heat is going to take it down. You're going to feel like you're drinking a warm Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio, Sauvignon Blanc, whatever it happens to be. I just brought a small stemless one. I've seen ones 2, 3, 4 times the size of these. Bigger bulbs. A lot of people say the aroma, the smell, the taste, whatever. I do tell people, if you go into a restaurant, I have a rule of thumb. The waiter owns the stem and they own the base. I own the bulb, I own the rim. I go nuts if I walk into a place and they take the glass of wine off the top holding their fingers. I have no idea where their fingers have been. I've had people walk up to me holding glasses of wine like this as they have the tray. And I'm going, you're kidding. You think I'm going to drink that? You're out of your mind. So it's something to be aware of. And then here's what I call the fun part of this. And I do this every now and then when we go out to dinner with some friends just for kind of a classy move. A lot of glasses, and it's hard to see, of course, because of the camera, might have a lip or an edge that flares out. If you drag your finger, you might feel it. Sometimes you can drag it on the inside, and you will feel, that little bit of a lip. Same thing with one of these, and sometimes it's just flat. Believe it or not, it makes a difference. Because if you go to pour this glass and the wine comes down, it hits that inside lip, it bounces up, and it will land further back on your tongue. So one of the things I do with a Sauvignon Blanc, and we'll talk about this in a second, if you take a Sauvignon Blanc with an inward roll glass, you may get a metallic taste if you're eating fish, for example. We'll talk about white foods, white wines, all that type of stuff. And I had a friend of mine one day saying this, there's this terrible metallic taste in this wine. And we happened to be at Capitol Grill outside of Boston. And I said, it's the glass. He's like, David, you're nuts. I said, no, it's the glass. So of course the wine sommelier came over and he said, Mr. Boyle's dead on. He said, instead of touching the tip of your tongue, the wine's going further back and you're getting basically a chemical reaction. The wine's not bad, the fish is not bad. It's, believe it or not, where they kind of met on your palate. So again, a little stupid thing, but what I like to do if I really like to mess with people, I'll sit there with my wife and I'll kind of look at the glass and do this. So of course, my guests kind of go, okay, Dave's doing it. I should be able to do it, right? I kind of look in, take a little sniff. There's nothing in the glass. I'm just saying there's nothing. Then I'll put the glass up next to my ear. And my friends put the glass up next to their ear and they go, Dave, I get the thing, I get the smell. What's this for? I said, I want to make you look like an idiot at the dinner table. And it works out pretty well. So just my little sidebar, little fun stuff there. I get to check all these wonderful things out. If you know nothing about wine, and I know as you, there's some younger classmates on here, what happens is you end up going to a business dinner or whatever, and so it's, oh my heavens, I know nothing about wine. And again, I started years ago. I took my first job in 1979 at the Keg Room in downtown Springfield. So anyone who's old enough to remember that, good luck to you. So what happens is when you start doing this and you start tasting wine, you don't know what you like. And I always tell people, start off with something simple, clean, easy. I'm not gonna say jump into, White Zinfandel was big, X amount of years ago. Speaking of which, my friends from Sutter Home are the people that basically invented White Zinfandel, but they never trademarked the name. Great business loss there, and that was invented by accident, believe it or not. So it takes some time. But if you learn anything about the basics, white wine goes with white food, goes with white sauce, and can be served chilled. If you know nothing, those are the basic kind of rules right there. And here's the crazy part. If you know nothing, I'm gonna open a bottle. This is a screw top, for lack of a better term. It's technically called a Stelvin closure. I'm assuming some guy named Stelvin invented it. So don't you love this part of my job? I get to drink while I'm working, and my bosses condone it. They think it's fantastic. It is a beautiful thing. So we poured ourselves a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc. We're having some fun with it. I always tell people, if you just take that first smell, if you know nothing about wine, most people will say, I smell alcohol. Good. Everybody knows what alcohol smells like. Don't drink rubbing alcohol, but you can smell it, okay? With this, I would say to somebody, no matter what you know, I'm playing with people, I'll go, I get a hint of apple, maybe a little citrus. Every white wine in the world will have some hint of apple or citrus. It is not some hidden mystery. Now, as you educate your palate, train your nose, train your mouth and your feel, and I know this sounds crazy as a kid coming from Springfield College, and I'm talking about how to train your mouth. You learn to pick on different nuances. And if you know what something smells like, you'll pick it up. Now, I don't know if all of you have a Joe Gott Sauvignon Blanc, but if you have a California Sauvignon Blanc, you're going to get a certain aroma, and we'll talk about it in a second. If you got a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, Oyster Bay, Kim Crawford, anything like that, when you take that first smell, you're going to get a very fruit-forward, grapefruit type of smell. And it will pucker your face. It hits you, it's upfront, it's power, it's what they do. If you take a California Sauvignon Blanc, and again, here's what this, this just says California, and I get into maybe reading a label a little later on. I'll write myself a quick note, because that can be fairly important. What happens with California, that means the fruit can be sourced from anywhere. It could be from Napa, Sonoma, Monterey, Amador, Santa Barbara. It can come from anywhere. They can't label it from a valley unless I believe it's 85% fruit from that particular region. Then you're allowed to use the name and sit there and say Napa Valley, whatever it happens to be. But if you smell this wine, again, let me back up for a second. You pour the wine into a glass. First thing you do is kind of look at it. With a Sauvignon Blanc, you should get, I call it golden hue. Now, if you want to put a white background up behind it, whatever, I don't think we have to get that technical. You're going to take a look at it. You might want to give it a little bit of a swirl. We're going to open it up. We're going to get some air in there. Air is good for wine when you're drinking it. Air is not good for wine when you're storing it. So that's a story for a different day. Either is sunlight, any of those type of things that makes wines go bad. So as we swirl it around, then you're going to want to smell, and this is where I get a little geeky. I've seen people, they put their nose over the glass and they do this, okay? I've seen people kind of like cover one nostril, which is honestly what I do. I take kind of a bit of an inhale type of thing. Pardon my expression, I've seen people do the, what's the end one thing of like a peacock, and they kind of go stick their whole nose in the glass. I'll be honest with you, I did that at a Scotch tasting. I almost burned the inside of my nose. All my little capillaries and things open. I ended up with a bloody nose, wearing a white shirt with a suit coat and tie on, and it was messy. It was not a pretty day. So if you take this white wine, I'm assuming you have hopefully a Sauvignon Blanc. If you have a Chardonnay, the smell will be different. We can certainly talk about that. Or if you have a Pinot Grigio, it can be different. But if you have a Sauvignon Blanc and it's from California, when you take that initial smell, and a lot of people say, I smell alcohol, I smell apple, I smell citrus and pear. I smell wet grass, as if someone cut my grass, or if you're on a golf course at 6 o'clock, you get that aroma. Some of you might be going, oh my gosh, I do, I get this. This is exactly what I'm smelling. There's about 100 people on this call. I bet 20 people think I'm already drunk and I have no idea what I'm talking about because they don't smell a damn thing. So again, it happens, I'm not offended, whatever. Then when you taste it, and it's kind of, if I take a sip and try to talk at the same time, I'll probably drool on myself, which probably isn't very attractive. So what happens there is you're going to take a sip as if you were like hot soup, and you're going to get that little kind of slurping sound, and you're going to move it through your mouth. And if this was an official wine tasting, you know, a lot of times we would have a bucket, and I hate to say to spit in or do whatever. We're tasting 2 wines. It's not going to kill us. I want you to enjoy it. I want you to have a great time. So again, you looked at it. The color seems beautiful. Now again, if the color was cloudy, a lot of times you can tell that's why the wine's bad. Okay, it doesn't look right to you. If you smell it and it smells, I always call it a wet gym sock. And I don't know if anyone went to Springfield College, you wouldn't know the smell of a wet gym sock. If you get that kind of, oh my God, it's been in my bag for 3 days, I forgot to take it out. Don't taste the wine. Okay, I've got a 14-year-old son. He picks up the milk. He looks, hey Dad, that looks kind of weird. Takes the top off, smells it. Hey Dad, this smells terrible. And then he takes a sip of it and spits it in the sink. And I'm like, Liam, you're 14. Understand, if it doesn't look good and doesn't smell good, I bet it's not going to taste good. So again, not brain surgery here, people. We're selling wine or drinking wine. So if you take a little sip, yeah, I mean, this to me is classic California Sauvignon Blanc. I can tell by the taste right off the bat. I have people say it's white wine. You know, how do you tell the difference between Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio, Moscatos, you know, whatever it happens to be? Again, if you train your palate, if you train your nose. I used to work with a gentleman named Sandy Block, who was a master of wine. He's one of the first, believe it or not. And we did a blind tasting. We put 14 bottles in front of him. He picked the first 7 wines by smell, all the way down to he could smell a wine and go, oh, this is from the Chaluga Valley. And I'm like going, how the heck does the guy know this by the smell? It's what he does. He's a pro at wine tasting. It's absolutely amazing the guy can do this. He picked 14 out of 14 wines, 7 by smell, 7 by taste, and he got them all down to the year. He could tell you the year. Understand one of the big differences, what I call in the wine, spirits, and beer business, beer can't change their formula. If you go back to those who remember New Coke and Old Coke, people got all upset that they came out with New Coke, don't mess with my Coke, don't do whatever. So if you're a beer company, you can't change the formula of Coors or Bud or Miller or whatever. You can only change the packaging. Every 3 to 5 years, you'll see them refresh the packaging. When it comes to wine, every year is different. Was it hot? Was it cold? Was it cloudy? You know, there are so many factors that play into wine. You know, that's what happens. I still tell people the best Cabernets I've ever had in my life are 97 Cabs. They were unbelievable. I still tease my wife that I think she drank my last bottle of 97 Cab, which I was saving, I don't know, my funeral. I don't know what to do with it, but I was saving it. It's a heck of a lot of fun. So if you've got a Sauvignon Blanc there, hopefully you like it. This would be great with seafood, with oysters, anything along those lines. I have had some people say to me, and I don't have one here, I've got one certainly on my rack, but they'll say, well, you know, what do we do if we go to a party? We don't know what people are having. How do we figure this out? Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir works with everything. It works with salmon, it works with ham, it works with steak, it'll work with seafood. Is it the best match? No, but is it going to be a match you can get away with? And again, when I say a tip, if you're going to somebody's house and they've invited you for dinner, maybe some of the younger kids on the call, if you're going to meet maybe future in-laws, don't buy a bottle of wine that was like 2 for $10 off the rack. You know, try to spend $15, $18, $20, try to impress them. These wines fall in the $10 to $15 range. Might be a little less, might be a little more. Whites tend to be a little less pricey than reds. So that's pretty straightforward. If anyone has the Joel Dot, my the 2019 here is Drinking Wonderful. Again, another rule for me when you get into white wines, I usually don't like my white wines to go more than 3 to 5 years. They start to turn, in my opinion. I have a bottle on my rack on the other side of the bar here from the Super Bowl, and they gave it to me, and somebody said, why didn't you drink it? I said, they only made 120 bottles with the Super Bowl logo on it. Why would I drink it? I wanted it for the sake of having the bottle, so I thought that was kind of cool. So that's our little white wine, and again, understand, you know, Chardonnay is king. A lot of us in the business always joke, we call it the ABCs of tasting wine, anything but Chardonnay. Chardonnay is so diverse. You get that Kendall Jackson American creamy, buttery profile. You get other people like Unoaked. And again, I know there's a chat box, so there's a question that I'm talking too fast, whatever. I do joke that I always teach to the lowest common denominator. Somebody wants to talk about bricks and residual sugars and soils. This probably isn't the call for that. Somebody wants to sidebar me, love to talk to you all day about it. So that's my wonderful impression of Joe Gott Sauvignon Blanc. I may finish it if you guys don't mind. Happy birthday to me.
Hey Dave, we do have one quick question in the chat. I don't know if you want to take one question here, or if you want to hold it off. It's up to you.
No, fire away. I'm joking. People are texting me, and I'm like, how can I answer the text if I'm talking to you?
We have some well wishes. There's some happy birthdays in there and compliments to the program. But one question that did come through is, why do some people love a wine and someone else hates it?
Again, I'm going to tell people it's personal taste. Why does somebody like Mexican food? Others don't. Why does somebody like hot and spicy food? Others don't. It's all personal taste. I will tell you the one thing that I did learn in this business, we start with kind of what I call light and airy wines. If you start, most people, their first step into this is usually they had a glass of champagne somewhere. And without getting overly technical, you probably didn't. Champagne has to come from the Champagne region of France. Anything else is sparkling wine. So a perfect example, and being a show off here, this is a bottle of Corbel. This came from the White House for a friend of mine that was served at a White House dinner. This was a little gift thing you could take home with you. This is not champagne, people. What it does say on the label is Method Champenois, which says it's made under the Champagne method, which is different than being from Champagne. This bottle over here in the States is probably $3. If this was an imported champagne bottle this size, it'd probably be about 13, just to give you an idea. And just if anyone is into, wines coming, understand with the pandemic, the pipeline for a lot of this stuff has backed up. New Zealand, it's taken us almost 6 months to get wines out of there. It's going to take us 4 months out of Italy, 4 months out of France. So if you're a big Sauvignon Blanc drinker or a Sancerre drinker, even French Rosé from Provence, go get them now. Because I guarantee they're going to be gone probably by 4th of July, if not sooner. Everyone's just going to kind of jump in. So again, wine does come down to answer the question probably more directly. It's personal taste. It's what you like. My wife personally likes Merlots. She thinks those are fantastic. I get it. I love big reds. I love California Cab, California Zin. I love the whole fruit forward, like bursting in your mouth type of flavor. So hopefully whoever asked that question, great question, by the way, thank you. I hope that answers it. So that gives you a little bit of a key. Honestly, here's what I call my to-go wine. Every chance I can, if I'm sitting around the house, and it's really funny, people, I'm not that big of a drinker for a guy in the business. I do tease my wife every now and then. I said, I no longer drink with people with first names. So Jack, Jim, Johnny, Jose, and a few of those guys, they can't come over the house anymore. I try not to play with those boys because it never ends well for all of us. Joel's a different story. Joel comes to visit, I'm a happy guy. So I'm going to pour Joel into this glass, which I'm not a big fan of. This was actually my wine expo glass down in Boston. It used to be a real fun thing to go to. We're going to pour it in. Okay, maybe a little more red. I like my reds a little better. Life is good. And understand, and I'll probably talk about it later, wine is romance. If you're going to dinner, you want that whole experience. I'm not crazy about a waiter coming up and going, hey, you got a Sauvignon Blanc? Crack. It's not there. I love the whole piece about corks, all that stuff. While we're on corks, just for fun, I might as well talk about it. And I do skip around here a little. I think you can see the difference. This is a screw top wine. I'm literally turning my finger. You can see them moving. It's a cap, no different than a water bottle, Pepsi bottle, whatever. It does protect the integrity of the wine. You'll see red wines, white wines all the time. I can pull them off the rack. The reason being they went to this is cork. Cork contains an acid called TCA. Most, if not all, cork will come from Portugal. A bad bottle of wine is not necessarily corked. A corked bottle of wine is a bad bottle. What happens is that they cut this, shape it, they kind of cook it and dry it. If they don't dry it out completely and they put the cork in the bottle, the acid will drip. TCA, and I can't, it's tripped to something or other, way too many letters for me to explain. The acid drips into the bottle, hence corking the wine. The acid will hit and cause a complete terrible chemical reaction. Usually you can smell it. I did a tasting out in Marlboro years ago, and I usually taste all my wines in the lineup. I didn't get to the last couple, and these people drinking the red, and I finally said, hey, this is a pretty hot commodity. I got to take a sip of this myself. The bottle was corked. It was absolutely bad. And I had probably poured half the bottle before I tasted it. So I kind of did the old, okay, this one comes off the table and goes down here. And people came back, hey, what happened to that? And it was a Syrah. I'm like, oh, geez, ran out. Sorry, can't help you. But understand with this, and a lot of people love the whole romance. The guy comes over, and if you get this official, they should show you the bottle. Again, to whoever orders the wine. So if you're out, male, female, it doesn't make a difference. Right? If a female orders the wine, you're showing it to her. If the male's ordering wine, you show it to him. It's pretty straightforward. It's not a big deal. But now what happens is you say, okay, it's been approved, and you have your little opener here. And I'm not going to open a bottle. I'm sure you guys can do that. But you would have your your little knife here. You've got your lever. This technically is called the worm. Okay. So what you do is trim the top. Okay. Put the blade away. Stick the worm in. The worm goes in. You then put this as leverage, and you would take out the cork. And again, when you cut the capsule, the top piece will come off. You get a piece that will look about the size of that, which you probably can't see. But that's how this pretty much plays out. A lot of people will keep the cork. I've kept corks from different dinners, different events I've been to. It's fun. I even keep bottles somewhere just for fun. I'm going to step off camera for 1 second. Little drop. This is pretty good. Oh my heavens, this is way heavier than I thought. This was a bottle I had at my wedding. I'm not sure if you can see that. This is a case of champagne piled into a bottle. So I kept that. Karen and I have been married 21 years. Been together 28. Has 2000 on it, which is the year I was married. The cork is on the top of a building in Boston. It shot up when we took it off. Probably should say that. If you're dealing with corks on champagne, kind of a sidebar, but this wasn't in my presentation, understand they're kind of vacuum sealed. If you're opening a bottle of champagne, do not put your head over the glass, okay? What you want to do is usually put a towel, you turn the cork one direction, the bottom of the bottle is what they call a punt. You would turn it in opposite direction, and you want to have it kind of fizz out, not a type of noise. I worked with a gentleman, the Millennium 2000, he was trying to open a bottle of champagne and leaning over it. It shot up and hit the eye. Oh, someone question or someone just jumped in? Oh, I think we're okay. And by the way, I'm coming to you live from my basement here in Bryanville, Massachusetts. This is my bar. I had a custom bar built. You can't kind of see the angle on the TVs and a bunch of stuff, but it's a pretty cool place to hang out. And there's a lake behind my house right there. And life is pretty darn good. So jumping back into the red wine, and if I jumped around, I apologize, but I'm passionate about this. It's what I do for a living, and I have so much fun because what I do for a living, everyone else does for fun. So I tell people I go to parties, I never get past the kitchen. My wife's friends always saying, oh, Dave, we had this wine the other night, or what do you think of this wine? And I end up BSing about wine the entire evening. It's so much fun. But remember we talked about white wine? We said white wine, white food, white sauce, room temperature, chilled, excuse me. Pretty straightforward. With reds, what you got to pretty much do is red wine, red food, red meat, call it what you want, a red sauce, and you serve it room temperature. Now, do people put ice in their wine every now and then? Again, my life's too short. Whatever you enjoy doing, works well for me. I'm never going to tell you can't put ice or white or chilled or whatever. If you enjoy it, there's a great story, Trader Joe's, I think they're all around the country, but there's something called $2 Chuck. And everybody says, oh, I've had $2 Chuck. $2 Chuck was Charles Shaw. He lost his name in a divorce settlement. And his wife went to a competitive wine company and said, make the crappiest wine you can make and put my husband's name on it. And that's how Charles Shaw, which used to be $8, $10, $12 bottle of wine, became $2 Chuck. So there's a bit of trivia for you. Again, I'm the king of useless information. So back to the red wine. If you know nothing, we did the same thing. We're going to pick the glass up. We're going to look at it. Again, the darker the color, if you get a Cabernet Sauvignon, if you get a red Zin, they're usually a very tight grape. They're very full. And most of the color comes from the skin contact, by the way. I'm sure a lot of people knew that, or maybe you didn't know that. Your lighter ones, like Pinot Noirs, will be very thin. You can almost see through them. That's why I'm not crazy about it. I've never been a big Pinot Noir drinker. But when we talked about the white, when you smell a white, if you know nothing about wine, citrus, apple, people look and say, wow, this guy knows so much about wine. In this glass right now, I don't even have to try. I can look at it. I know if I put my nose next to this, I'm going to get some hint of black cherry. If you've got a bottle of Cabernet, if the bottle of Joel got, whatever it happens to be, or just a bottle of red wine in general, think what a black cherry smells like, and I'll kind of take a little hit and go, oh yeah, I mean, this is. Now again, this is where I get a little crazy. I've been doing this a long time. I get a hint of fig off that. I'm sure there's people in the audience going, how did the guy get fig? It's just what I get. My nose is trained for this. I usually tell people what you smell, you can't be wrong. If that's what you think you smell, you're okay. It's pretty straightforward. It's not a big deal. Excuse me. Here's a question that comes up a lot of times. People always say to me, you know, I like a dry wine or whatever, or how is a wine dry? It's a liquid, it's wet. The idea is how it finishes on your tongue, okay, on the back of your palate. The analogy I use to a lot of people, I don't assume most people on this call may have had a drink in their career. They might have had tequila. You take a sip of tequila, you get a little bit of a burn on the back of your palate. That's when you should get the dry effect. So if you like dry wines like a Chianti, Chianti's main grape is Sangiovese, you're gonna get a dry red wine. I still have people say to me, it's a liquid, I don't get dry. Hey, maybe someday you'll catch on. Here's the other great analogy I get. Someone says to me, I hear people talk about body of wine. How do I know how to judge a body of wine? It's pretty easy. A light bodied wine would look almost something like skim milk, to give you an analogy. It's a little almost watery looking, thin looking, not a lot of, I'm gonna call it viscosity, which I know sounds like I'm talking about motor oil. So for that, I certainly apologize. If you're drinking milk, that would be a regular bodied wine in most cases for a red or white wine. It's that nice middle of the road, not too heavy, not too watery, it's right in the middle. A full-bodied wine is going to remind you of cream, thicker, almost gooey. There's a Pinot Noir out there called Meiomi. First time I tasted Meiomi, I thought I was drinking like grape jelly that had been liquefied. It's just the way the thing was. And Pinot Noirs aren't made that way, but they've kind of changed the direction of Pinot Noirs. I sold the brand for years. I know the Wagner family personally. They make great wines. So the Wagners make Camus and things of that nature, if you're a big wine people, to say the least. So again, if you want to taste this and tell me what you get.
Dave, it's Kaylee. Another question we had come through, which I selfish because I am so curious too. And a couple of people had asked this. As far as using a decanter, should you use it? Should you not? Do you do this for all your reds or only certain reds? What about doing it for white wine? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. Again, I just have to kind of write myself a note. I love a decanter. To me, and I'm not trying to say there's a measuring stick or whatever. If you're buying a $5 bottle of wine off the shelf, you can pour it in a boot, you can pour it in a decanter. It's going to taste the same no matter what it does. If you get a more expensive bottle of wine, and I go back to the business thing, if you're having a business dinner and you want to impress that client, you get a nice bottle of wine and you say to the sommelier or whoever happens to be, you say, I'd like to decant that. And I've seen decanting done so many different ways. It's amazing. I've seen the ones with the little like the vents in them when they try to pour through the vent. They do it, a friend of mine always does it kind of what I call this way. He does this kind of unique little pouring type of thing. It's a classy move. It's a great move. If you're just at home having a bite to eat, I mean, I wouldn't overly worry about it. I think one, if I was at a fancy restaurant, yes, I'd want to decant it, and again, more expensive wines. Understand, like I'll taste the wine every now and then and say, oh, this tastes a little tight. My friends look at me, oh, tight? What are you talking about? I said, it's gonna taste a little better in about 15 minutes. Let the bottle sit, again, no cork on the top, let it open, let's see what happens. It works like a charm. You taste the wine 10 or 15 minutes later, and people say to me, oh my heavens, how do you know that was gonna happen? Again, it's what I do, it's what we do. People that understand this business, the wine will loosen up, some air gets into it, the aromatics come out, they play. The one thing I will tell you, and I know this sounds crazy, you can actually get what they call bottle shock. So let's say I buy a bottle here and I say, I'm going to meet Dr. Cooper in Springfield. It's 125 miles. I put the bottle in the front seat and that bottle's bouncing around and doing all sorts of stuff, whatever. I get to Dr. Cooper's house and I crack that bottle open. And guess what? It could taste a little funny because it all has to settle down and kind of regroup itself. Little chemical reactions take place. Again, half hour, 20 minutes, whatever. That bottle will taste completely different from when I first opened it. So hopefully, Kylie, that worked. Is that a good enough answer?
Hey, Dave, there's a couple other questions that came in through the
Sure.
chat as well. I don't know if you have time to do a couple more questions here.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at my time. I'm showing up 13 minutes. So if you guys are good, I'm good.
Sure. Yeah, there's another question that came through is when you find a wine you like, but is expensive, what is the best method to find a wine comparable, but a more affordable price?
I would say, and that's a great question, by the way, because anyone can overpay for good wine. It's, are you smart enough to not pay? And a lot of times I tell somebody, let's say you buy a wine, and we're going to say Napa Valley. And you say, wow, I really like Napa Valley. That's got some great wine. So if you're going to look at Cabernets, again, probably in one sense a bad example, because Napa Cabs can be pretty expensive, but they can be super expensive, just absolutely off the wall. But if you're looking for something, you want to find something from the same specific region. Again, if you're a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc drinker, you're probably not going to like California Sauvignon Blanc. They don't taste anything alike. So if you say, wow, I had this great wine when I was visiting New Zealand, I'm going to try this, Sauvignon Blanc over here. It's going to taste different. Understand most of the grape stocks and for the wines, they came from Italy. People like Robert Mondavi, Louis Martini, the Sebastiani, someone mentioned earlier. These are the founding fathers of the Beverages family. They kind of founded Napa Valley when it was just a big pile of dirt. So I would say the first thing to look for is a similar region, and you should be able to find some stuff. I will tell you what I call another joke in this business. Just happened to me the other day. I bought my wife a car. The people were very nice. I brought in a bottle, a case of wine to give to the service people and sales people. And one of the guys says to me, do you know how much that wine costs? I said, yeah, I hope I do. He goes, and you bought a case of it? I said, didn't tell you that. I had a case in my house. Because I like to keep stuff that I like to drink. But again, I'm not going to go to someone's house and bring them a $3 bottle of wine. Okay? I jokingly say I have an image to protect. People would expect I want to bring them something good. So we tried. You have more questions, Damon? Again, I can talk on this stuff for hours, so slow me down if I get in a roll there.
Yeah, no worries. Another one, a couple of questions that were similar that came through, talking about possibly if you don't finish a bottle of wine, the best preferred method to preserve it for another time.
Great controversy, because that actually in Massachusetts, you can take a bottle of wine home. And honestly, from a legal standpoint, I think that's a nightmare. I'll be honest with you, once you open a bottle of wine, air gets into it. And people talk that, about Kubernetes systems and all these different types of systems that you can use to take care of it. I'm not saying, hey, you open a bottle of wine, you have to drink it and kill it that night. But to me, you've got about 24 hours to drink that wine. White wine will usually go bad within about 24 hours unless perfectly stored. Red wine, some people get 3 days out of it. Again, I can tell. I can tell when someone opened a bottle of wine yesterday, which is a bit of a nightmare. So I would basically say to people, if you want to, put the cork back in it, some people have those little air gadgets that you can theoretically pull the air out. But they said to somebody, if I take the air out of this wine, and let's say we put the cork back in, and they pump it out and they do all this stuff, to me, there's still air in there. There isn't as much, but there's still parts per million that are eating. If you remember the old game Pac-Man, for those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, young, that's what happens. Air gets into the wine and starts to eat it as you're storing it. So, and again, a white wine, 3 to 5 years in most cases tops. I've had an 11 and 12-year-old bottle of Farniente, which was out of this world. But again, perfectly stored, underground cellar, everything was perfect. The average person at their house is not going to be able to store a white wine for 10 years. A red wine can last you forever, depending on how long it goes. But again, a lot of them are for show. So,
Sure.
Next.
You got time for one or another one here that came through? It's talking about, are more expensive bottles of wine good financial investments?
I'm going to say yes and no. I've got some great stuff. I'll tell a story that I kicked myself for. I won a bottle of wine in a contest, and I brought it to my house. I had no idea of the value. Someone told me it was expensive. Had some people working on my house, and the bottle was wrapped in tissue paper, very nicely done. And the gentleman who was working on my house, my problem is I had 3 separate contractors. Someone stole about 2 or 3 of my bottles off my rack. One of those bottles was valued at $48,000. Now, would I pay $48,000 for that bottle of wine? Never in a million years. Would I take it for free? Of course I would. So people will look and sit there and say, hey, this bottle of wine is worth this or that. It's in the eyes of the beholder. You know, you're seeing people buy Tom Brady's jersey now for $1.3 million or something. You know, I've met Tom Brady. I've talked to Tom Brady. Would I buy a shirt for $1.3 million? No, never in a million years. So a wine collection is just that. I will tell you, deal with a reputable dealer. There is a huge fake import market out of China where they take old bottles from fancy restaurants and refill them basically with crap and put the corks on them, reseal them, and basically sell them as the original product. And it's been exposed. There's a couple auction houses in New York that got caught doing that. And again, you're blowing your reputation, you're done. No one will buy your stuff anymore. But again, I think when people come downstairs to my basement, they see a bottle like this, or they see some of the things I have on my rack, people go, oh my heavens, I read about that or saw that, or, you know, you can't buy that. I've got, there's a bottle right by my feet in a wooden case. This was given to me by a guy named Robert Mondavi. I don't know if you can see it, but it's in the case. I don't know if I can get this open. Nope, I can't. This is a 1992 Cabernet from Robert Mondavi. Now, it's autographed. Excuse me. It's autographed and signed. Is that worth some money to some people? Yeah, Robert Mondavi's passed away. You're never going to get a signed Robert Mondavi bottle. It's pretty cool. So I think it's neat. Just for fun, I got nothing up here. I was a absolute salesman of the year one year. They made me a bottle of Absolute Boyle. I don't know if you can see that, but it says Absolute Boyle on it. I've kept that forever, and everyone tries to drink it in my house. So that's kind of fun. Damon, any others?
Yeah, there's a couple others that came in. It looks like the connection between headaches and tannins. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yep, tannins.
Yeah.
That a lot of times can be allergies. I always tease most people, if you're getting a headache, it's usually a volume thing. I go to people, oh, I only had 2 glasses of wine last night. I'm like, no, I don't think so. You had 2 when you were with me over here, and we had 2 at that place. Oh, that's right, I had 4. Wow, I got a headache. There are some people, because of tannin, mostly in red wine, can get a headache that's basically a neurological reaction within the brain. It can bother people. I don't want to say it's psychosomatic. I've seen it work both ways. I will tell people I'm one of the leading experts on alcohol and security issues in Massachusetts that I teach the course. Alcohol gets absorbed directly into your bloodstream, and it is a depressant, okay? It doesn't have to be broken down like food, any of the above. Same thing if you're drinking a vodka and tonic. As soon as you put carbonation into the mix, it's now going into your bloodstream faster. It works like a speedball. So what a lot of people don't realize is when they have, you know, if you're sitting on your back deck and it's hot and you're sweating and whatever, and you can't figure it out, and then you keep drinking. Again, this is going into your bloodstream. It's going to hit you a heck of a lot harder and a heck of a lot faster. Understand, alcohol leaves your body in 3 ways. It is perspiration, regurgitation, and urination. There is no miracle cure, okay? There's nothing. The only thing that gets you sober is time, assuming you don't start drinking again. It takes you roughly 1 hour to get 3/4 of pure alcohol out of your system. So again, if you're out and you have 6, 8, 10 beers, glasses of wine, shots of whiskey, don't think you're going to sober up in 20 minutes. It's not going to happen.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. I want to be aware. I think we got caught up with most of the questions. I just want to be aware of your time too. We're at 5:26. So just want to give yourself some time to go through some more things as well.
Well, no, let me do this. I think, again, I call this Wine 101, and I covered most of what I had on my little sheet here. And I'm going to pour myself a nice little glass. And I'm going to thank you guys for being a wonderful audience. I didn't get heckled at all, which is kind of fun, because you're all on mute, so you can't heckle me. But I've always done this, and if any of you see me do my little presentations on campus, when I first started in the liquor business back in the 80s, I believe it or not, I worked with a guy named Donnie Champagne, real name. He sold Miller beer, and Miller beer was the champagne of beer, so the whole thing. And, you know, I was asking Donnie for some tips, because to me, if you want to be successful, you model yourself after the successful people. And Donnie was the guy. I mean, he was just the guy. And he said to me years ago, he said, David, if you remember 4 things, you're going to be a successful kid. He said, every day you want to lie, steal, cheat, and drink. I'm thinking to myself, I'm a 20-year-old, 26-year-old kid. I'm saying, lie, steal, cheat, drink. Right up my alley. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better deal. Well, again, he said, Dave, you want to lie with someone you love. You want to steal someone's heart. You want to cheat death. And you want to drink with us because we're family and friends. On that note, this is the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. I had so much fun. I thank you 1,000 times over. If you enjoyed it, please let Tammy know, or Dr. Cooper know, or Kylie. Just give them the feedback. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Happy birthday to me. Happy Father's Day to you people next week and all that fun kind of stuff. Thank you so much. Stay safe.